What's up, everybody? UFC Fight Night Abu Dhabi is officially in the books, and in this video, I will be giving my full card recap, breakdown, and analysis, starting with the very first fight of the night, working our way up to the main event. I will link the time codes down below, so if there's specific fights you want to hear me discuss, feel free to do that. But if you're a real one, watch the whole thing, man. Overall, I thought this card was really entertaining. I thought we had a little bit of everything on this card, and the main event, I can't wait to talk about it because that thing was absolutely high level. We got to see some really good things from both sides, from both Sandhagen and Umar Nurmagomedov, but we'll talk about that as we go here. But let's hop right into this thing, man. I mean, first fight of the night, Dumas and Tiuliulin. Cedric Dumas gets the job done. Look, I understand that people, Tiuliulin was having some success with the grappling, but the damage that Cedric Dumas was causing, I could see to the judges, that would give him the edge in this match. I mean, the jab was fast. I mean, Cedric Dumas was coming into this thing with a heavy heart, and you could just see the way that he was fighting. He had a little bit more of a tenacity to him, in which it just kind of willed him to get the job done. But overall, man, I mean, that was a big win for Cedric Dumas. It was much needed, coming off of, in a situation in his career where it's like, man, when you lose a few fights or you start to head down that road and start to add up a couple L's, you kind of never know where a fighter is going to go from there. But Cedric Dumas, man, huge win, way to get that thing done. Moving on, we got Herbert, Rolando Bedoya. Herbert, man, this guy is, I've been saying on my channel, man, he's one of the most underrated guys in the lightweight division, in my opinion. I'm not saying he's a world champion. I'm not saying yet that he's some sort of contender, but he's smooth in there. He's got really good hands. He's got some pretty good kicks. He's got lightning fast kicks. He's got really, really good movement, lateral movement. I mean, the guy's got it all in terms of the striking. Now, he was having some issues with the leg kicks of Bedoya, but as I expected coming into this fight, the speed of Jai was going to be too much for Bedoya. Bedoya is one of those guys that just kind of plots forward, banks on leg kicks, likes to kind of bring you into a little bit of a phone booth firefight, and Herbert's not going to sit there and play that kind of game. And Herbert, I'd like to see him sit on his shots a little bit more. I thought he was, letting that jab go. He was stinging Bedoya with it, starting to go to the body. He was getting his leg beat up, so that's something that he's going to have to adjust as you start to get up, higher into the rankings. You have to be able to adjust to the leg kicks. But nonetheless, man, Herbert, outstanding performance. Glad to see him get a win because don't forget, this is a guy that had Ilia Topuria on skates, dropped him with a head kick when Topuria was up at lightweight. So Herbert, man, very skilled fighter. I was happy to see him get the job done. Moving on, we have Victoria Dudakova and Sam Hughes. This was a big shocker to me. This was a shocker to me because, look, Dudakova seemed like she had the skill set in terms of the grappling, and she was decent on the feet, to where you just thought that maybe that was all going to come together, and this was just kind of the stars were aligning for her to get a win over Sam Hughes, kind of that veteran that Sam Hughes is. But we just saw, man, this is what I love when you get kind of these prospects on the rise that we're kind of putting maybe the cart before the horse a little bit, where we're like, they're the next thing in the division. They're a contender. They're this, they're that. And you saw Dudakova had a lot of success. She started to kind of get things going, and then you saw her start to get tired. And then you saw Sam Hughes recognize that and go, aha, and start to put the foot on the gas, start to walk her down, start to, then start to win some of the grappling exchanges. I mean, it was just a really, really good performance by Sam Hughes. The thing was close. I could have seen how maybe someone could have given it to Dudakova, but I thought Sam Hughes got it done. I thought that, Dudakova's body language was not great, especially starting really in the second round. And then into the third, Sam Hughes was winning a lot of the striking exchanges. The grappling was just not the same from Dudakova. Really, really good performance by Hughes. Huge win. And again, like I said, that veteran presence at times, it means a lot in the UFC, man. Okay, moving on. We have Guram and Jordan Vucenic. This was a fight I told you guys to have your eye on. And Jordan Vucenic, former, as in when he fought for Cage Warriors, he was a champion. I mean, this guy, I've watched him on CM Boxing's channel, a lot of, sparrings of his with high-level Muay Thai guys, and he has outstanding striking, and you got to see it on display against Guram. I mean, in the first round, I don't think you could have had a better first round than what Jordan Vucenic had, considering the fight was on short notice. You're kind of a last-minute step in against a really well-rounded striker in terms of, being able to throw the hands, throw the knees, throw the kicks. I mean, Guram is really smooth on the feet, and you saw Jordan Vucenic land some nasty shots in the first round. And then Guram he just was very patient. That veteran feel, man, that Guram kind of put on display and coming out there and looking really good in rounds 2 and 3 after taking some nasty shots from Jordan Vucenic. Big win from Guram. He absolutely needed this win. I mean, I would say that he needed this win more than Jordan Vucenic needed the win, because Jordan really didn't have anything to lose taking this fight, considering it was short notice. I know he's had a little bit of a hard road to get to the UFC. This is a guy I felt should have been in the UFC a long time ago, in my opinion. But you got to see, this guy has serious skills. He has good grappling. His striking is outstanding. He's got good power in his hands. He looked faster at points to me, especially in that first round than Guram. But you just saw the veteran presence of Guram, even having some success in the grappling to Guram. This was a really high-level fight. This was a high-level fight. I enjoyed watching this. And Jordan Vucenic, he better be somebody the UFC is like, okay, you're a stud, man. We need to sign you. We need to give you an opportunity, give you a full camp, come in and prepare, because Jordan Vucenic, I can't give the guy enough praise. Not only just from taking the fight on short notice, the Cage Warriors, career that he's had, all that he's put into the MMA career, and his walkout song, just a powerful song, man. I forget the name of it. I'll have to look that up again. But the walkout that he has, I remember that from Cage Warriors. Just kind of like, I like what we got from Jordan Vucenic. But don't take away from Guram, man, because that guy, huge performance, well done by him. We got to see even some of the grappling. Big win for Guram, was much needed. Moving on. Shamil Gaziev and Don'Tale Mayes. This fight went pretty much how I think most of us in the MMA community thought that this was going to go, which is, look, Don'Tale Mayes, he's got good power in his hands. He's a heavyweight. And a lot of heavyweights, all it takes is one shot. But with this matchup, it just felt like the UFC, the stars were aligning for Shamil to get back in the win column. Coming out there against Jairzinho Rozenstruik, getting pieced apart by, in all fairness, Jairzinho is a pretty good striker. I don't think at times maybe he gets the credit he deserves. He was just picking Shamil apart. And that was the first time we saw Shamil, what was a scheduled 5-round fight, comes in there, Apex main event. Like, I know there's not a crowd, but still, the thought of a 5-rounder, just, that was a big step up in competition. And then what you saw in this fight was, I wouldn't say anything extraordinary from Shamil, right? I feel like that's pretty fair to say, but what we saw, he does have a good jab. That jab was lightning of Shamil. He started to move forward, started to push the pace, and anytime he felt a little uncomfortable, he went to where he knows to go, which is to, enter into the grappling, enter into the clinch, and ultimately take down Hayes and control him. And the blob prevails, man, just laying and praying at times, doing what he has to do to get the job done. But look, got to give credit to Shamil. It doesn't matter who, to bounce back off of a loss like that when you've looked invincible, to get battered and embarrassed, quite frankly, by Jairzinho Rozenstruik, and then to come out there in a matchup like this where you are supposed to win, there's a lot of pressure. And Shamil went out there, he did what he had to do, got the job done. Was it impressive? I wouldn't go that far. I mean, I was expecting him, honestly, to possibly get Mayes out of there, whether it was a submission, ground and pound, in terms of the dominant, what we've seen from him in terms of grappling. But nonetheless, got the job done. And like I said, the win is the most important thing when you're on the rise, especially like this. Okay, moving on. Yahya and Fernandes. This was a crazy fight. This was one of the more crazy fights of the night. I mean, getting a finish like that. Fernandes, man, surprised me, because I thought Yahya coming into this fight, it just seemed like the stars were aligning for him to get the job done. But Fernandes showed an evolution in the game. Showed that he's, I wouldn't say he's a contender right now. Still got a little ways to go, but someone that you're going to have to keep your eye on. Dangerous. And anytime you see somebody that explosive on the feet, somebody that is that ferocious, it's dangerous. So I'm excited to see what happens next for Fernandes. And I think Yahya will be back. But nonetheless, man, that was a crazy fight. It was fast. And that was, I think that was probably the finish of the night, to be honest with you. So, but moving on, featured prelim. Azamat Murzakanov and Alonzo Menifield. This was one of the most impressive performances I've seen put up against Alonzo Menifield, and this was one of the more impressive performances of the night. Was Azamat. I mean, I don't think we've ever. Alonzo Menifield is not just some guy at light heavyweight. This is a guy that they call him atomic for a reason. I mean, he's got crazy power. He's explosive. He's a very, very good athlete, and he's dangerous. And Azamat just kind of went at him like he was none of those things. I mean, he was just stalking him down. He was darting in and out of range, letting his hands fly, letting the combinations go. And you just saw, man, the speed, the timing, and the power. He was just a step ahead of Alonzo Menifield. And Menifield kind of was resorting to ducking down with the hands up, almost kind of like what Gaethje does at times when, you know, having a hard time tracking down Azamat because he was moving so fast on the outside. And Azamat was throwing those shots up the middle, trying to catch him as he's dipping down. I mean, that was an unbelievable performance. And now this is a guy that in a light heavyweight division that's not that stacked. I mean, I don't think it would be far-fetched to see him in another fight or two and possibly getting into a title shot type of conversation. But that was a standout performance by Azamat on what I thought was a pretty good card overall. This was one of the performances that definitely stood out. So well done to him. That was a huge win. Moving on, we have the main card, Joe Alvarez and Elvis Brenner. Now, if you guys didn't see my main card video that I did, I gave my predictions and breakdowns for every single fight on the card. I picked Joe Alvarez to get this done, and it almost went the way I actually predicted it to go, which was Joe Alvarez. I said, man, this guy is very, very dangerous. He's tall for the weight class. He's got crazy power in his hands, and we saw the Muay Thai on display, the knees up the middle. I mean, that was sensational. But what I saw from Joe in the first round was almost exactly what I said, which was he was going to hurt Elvis Brenner and try and catch him in a submission, because that's what Alvarez, in my opinion, does such an amazing job of. He will hurt you with the striking, and then when you're compromised, he'll take advantage of that while you're trying to shake the cobwebs, and then he'll sink in a submission. And we almost saw that in the first round. Luckily for Elvis Brenner, there wasn't a ton of time left on the clock. He was able to survive. I think it was a Darce attempt, I believe. If I'm all over the place, man. I can't wait to talk about the main event. Great performance by Joe Alvarez. Great performance by Joe Alvarez. The one thing I will say, he does not move his head a lot. He does not move his head a lot, so that's going to be something to watch moving forward. I know he called out Bobby Green. Please, UFC, please do not book that fight. Do not book that fight. We don't need to see that. Give Bobby Green some older guy, an OG at this point. Do not do that. Joe Alvarez, this man is a contender. He is very dangerous. He deserves a ranked opponent next. Who that is, I'm not sure. Maybe we could see him versus like a Jalen Turner type of matchup or something like that. Two tall guys in the division. That was an impressive performance because Elvis Brenner, he's tough. He's tough. He's got pretty good grappling. He's got pretty good striking. He's kind of a scrappier type of dude on the feet, and Joe Alvarez just didn't play that game. He was stalking him down for 15 minutes. I mean, it was just a very impressive performance by Joe Alvarez. He was just not even batting an eye at anything Elvis threw his way. The minute the fight hit the floor, you could just tell that Alvarez was just in complete control of this entire fight. Really impressive performance by Joe Alvarez. Moving on. Mackenzie Dern and Lupi Godinez. This fight kind of went how I expected. I thought that Lupi Godinez was going to get the job done. I did pick Lupi to win this fight, but I had given Mackenzie Dern her due. I said, look, every time we see Mackenzie Dern come out there, she improves. Her striking is better. We know about the jiu-jitsu and the grappling in Mackenzie Dern. There's some gaps in the wrestling. Like if her wrestling, that's one of the things I would say. If Mackenzie Dern's wrestling improved, if it's here, if it just went to here, tied in with the jiu-jitsu, it would make her that much more dangerous. But man, you saw the minute the fight hit the floor, she was threatening submissions. We just knew that Lupi was not going to probably have a ton of success on the ground. Lupi was landing some really good shots on the feet. Her boxing looked clean. She was kind of neglecting the body a little bit, which I didn't quite understand that, because you're going up against Mackenzie Dern. You know she's probably going to try to implement some of the grappling, work the body. If you dip that head down and you start working the body, kind of a little more reluctant to shoot if you're on the side of Dern. But Mackenzie's striking, man, she's got some power in her hands, and she's aggressive, and she's not afraid to throw down. She still sticks her chin in the air when she backs up, but her striking improves every single time out, I almost feel, right? I feel like she just keeps getting better and better. That was a huge win for Dern. Considering her back was kind of to the wall in this matchup, and she's very marketable, right? The UFC, Mackenzie Dern is someone that the UFC is trying to push for women's MMA. There's no secret there, but this was a toss-up. This was a toss-up to me. This was a great fight, and I thought Lupi Godinez was going to just pick her apart on the feet to where we were going to see a little bit of levels in terms of the striking, but Dern looked good on the feet. When the minute the fight hit the floor, she was threatening submissions. We saw some good scrambles there. I thought Godinez did more damage on the feet. However, I understand why the judges, would see this for Dern, considering some of the grappling exchanges. And Dern was landing some good shots on the feet as well. Moving on. Tony Ferguson, Michael Chiesa. Guys, look, it was unfortunate. I know a lot of you were hoping that Tony Ferguson was going to get the job done and kind of go on this run and all the kind of fantasies that you might have had in your head. But look, man, I tried to bring you to reality in my predictions video, which is, look, Michael Chiesa is going to run right through him. You know, and it's no offense to Tony Ferguson. I never thought that we would be at the point where we're talking about Tony Ferguson as in, it just doesn't feel like the guy's going to win anymore. And we're like coming into a fight with Michael Chiesa where back in the day we're like, Tony should slice him up with some elbows. And if Chiesa wants to take him down, Tony's going to be throwing up triangles, slicing him with elbows from the bottom. Just not the same guy. Michael Chiesa is very physically strong. Tony he looked decent on the feet, right, while it lasted. Chiesa was landing the better shots, though, in terms of the boxing. Tony landed a couple of good leg kicks. The minute Chiesa got a hold of him, you saw the strength advantage. He took Tony's back very easily and was able to sink in the rear naked choke and sub him. Guys, Tony needs to retire. Look, I don't want to be the guy that says someone needs to retire because it's just they're the fighter and I'm not them, right? But I think it's ridiculous. I think it's ridiculous at this point. Tony Ferguson has lost 8 fights in a row. This used to be one of the top guys in the lightweight division. I know he spent some time at welterweight as well. He's just a shell of himself. He's a shell of himself, and I know he's 40. I think, what is he, 40 now? The crowd was chanting for him. It was great to see. I love that the crowd still gets behind Tony, but come on, man. Eventually, father time catches up, and you're just a shell of yourself. I feel like that's where we are with Tony. He put one glove down, so he says he's, I don't think Dana's going to give him another fight in the UFC. If they let him go somewhere else and do something, maybe he does, but I don't think it goes well for him no matter what he does at this point. Look, I'm not trying to hate on Tony. I like Tony. I've always liked Tony Ferguson. It's just, there just comes a point, man, where your reaction time slows down, your movement slows down, just everything kind of comes to a halt, and it's time. I feel like it's been time for Tony Ferguson, but now, considering what just happened here, it's got to be time, man, in my opinion. Got to be time. But impressive by Michael Chiesa. But again, I feel like all the pressure was on Michael Chiesa to get that one done. Okay. Marlon Chito Vera, Deiveson Figueiredo. I went with Figgy to win this fight, kind of for what happened, but not really, because I thought Marlon Chito Vera looked very aggressive. I actually thought that it was a much better version of Chito Vera in terms of being aggressive, being very forward, being, trying to, come after Figgy, which, I had said before, Marlon Vera, even in a 3-round fight, acts like he has 15 rounds to work with. I mean, the guy just, it takes him a while to get going, but what we saw was, Marlon Vera have a lot of success, right? In the first round, it seemed like Marlon was pushing the pace. Figgy was landing some good shots from the outside. Chito Vera was landing some good calf kicks. Chito was trying to figure out the speed of Figgy, and then he started to figure it out. I believe it was Figgy won the first round, Chito won the second. Chito won one of those rounds. I think it was the second. And then in the third round, you just saw Figgy. It's just the speed, man. The speed, he mixed in some of the takedowns to secure some of these rounds. And then I think he's the first person to ever drop Marlon Chito Vera. That right hand was nasty. And it was strange because I thought Chito kind of rung him with, I think it was a jab, and kind of stumbled him a little bit. And then I was like, oh my God, Chito has him hurt. And then boom, Figgy hurt him with a nasty right hand and, dropped him. And I think that it kind of caught Marlon off guard. But, you saw Marlon when he got back to his feet. He was a little dazed. He seemed a little rocked. Deiveson Figueiredo, man, I'm a massive Marlon Chito Vera fan. I picked Figgy to win, but I was hoping that, Chito could prove me wrong. I would have been happy to be wrong with that pick. But I just figured that Figgy, the speed, the power, being able to mix in the takedowns. I mean, this guy, when have we seen someone move up a weight class and just like, it's amazing to me. It's amazing to me. Like, we've seen guys move up a weight class and it benefits them. Like, we've seen Poatan Pereira. We've seen that happen. But look, Deiveson Figueiredo down at flyweight, I mean, this is a former champion. This isn't just some guy that moved up. I mean, he is 3-0 at bantamweight right now. He dominated Rob Font. He was rocking Rob Font, goes out there, takes down Cody Garbrandt, and subs Cody Garbrandt. And I know people want to shit on Cody. Oh, he's not in this prime anymore, this and that. Look, Cody Garbrandt's a hard fight in terms of if you're just going to try and take him down and grapple him. He's a very squirmy, wiry guy on the feet. He's not easy to hold down. And Deiveson Figueiredo took him down with ease and subbed him. So I thought that was incredibly impressive. So we had, the striking sample size from Figgy. We saw the grappling sample size. And I'm like, look, What we've seen from Marlon at bantamweight has been kind of the same blueprint. He's a slow starter, and if he's in a 3-round fight, if he doesn't get a finish, he's probably not going to win. There's not enough output. There's not enough, takedown. He's not mixing things together where other guys are, and that seemed to be the blueprint to beat Chito Vera. Figgy followed it perfectly. Now, Chito Vera, man, he's dangerous. He's got some nasty kicks. He looked aggressive. I think he needed to let his hands go a little bit more, but nonetheless, man, Deiveson Figueiredo, dude's a stud. I'd love to see him versus Petr Yan next. I know about, base MMA. A couple of us, my boy Tyler, we were talking about this on X, live during the fights. Petr Yan versus Deiveson Figueiredo, and then the winner of that gets the winner of Merab and Sean O'Malley. Sign me up. I mean, I know that we have Umar now in the wings as well, so that obviously is someone that's probably going to get a title shot. But in the meantime, the point is, Figgy, Yan, I want to see that fight. I think that that's a great matchup. Great performance by Deiveson Figueiredo. And again, Chito looked pretty aggressive. He looked pretty good in that fight. So hopefully he can bounce back in his next fight and get a W, because I really like Marlon Chito Vera. Moving on. Co-main event, we have Shara Bullet Magomedov and Mikhail Oleksiejczuk. This fight went pretty much how I figured it was going to go. I picked Shara Magomedov to get this thing done. Look, I even said I wouldn't have been surprised if Mikhail was able to put him out and get a finish here, because look, Shara is very good on the feet. There's no question. He's fun to watch. He's got some good hands. He's got exceptional kicks. His takedown defense is improving, as you saw against Mikhail Oleksiejczuk. The issue for me is the striking defense of Shara Bullet, particularly the boxing. There is a lot of holes there, man. Look, if Mikhail could have straightened out that left hand down the middle, he kept looping it over the top, and it kept, glancing off the side of the head of Shara Bullet, but it was landing. I'm like, if he could have straightened that out and threw that down the pipe, I think he could have seriously have hurt Shara. But we have to give Shara his credit. This guy, he's got that it factor, right? Right? I mean, the pirate, the red beard, whatever you want to call him, man. He's got the scary look. He's got the eye. He's got just everything about him is kind of a very intriguing thing going on here. And the UFC sees it. He's marketable. He's scary. He's got his voice is kind of scary. Like, the guy is a very marketable dude. He's a striker. He's fun to watch. He's got, very kick-heavy style. He would rather throw a kick than a punch. It's crazy. And it's just, to have that much output in terms of the kicks compared to the hands is crazy to me. But he's very good. He's very good. And I still think he called out Nick Diaz, which I just think is a disgraceful call out. I mean, you're trying to build yourself up and work your way into the rankings, and you're calling out a guy who's older, and I don't get it. I don't get the call out there. I still don't understand why the UFC hasn't looked to book Kevin Holland versus this man, because I think it's a big fight. They already booked Holland versus Chris Curtis, so I don't know who they give Shara at this point. I don't know who they give him. They're going to give him strikers, though. Make no mistake about it. They're going to try to continue to build him. They're going to give him strikers. I don't know who makes sense at this point, but Shara Bullet, man, fun to watch, but again, I'd like to see some finishes. But what we did see, he's got some nasty elbows. He cut Mikhail open. I like what we saw from Shara Bullet, man. He did what it took to get the job done. And again, those kicks, they are nasty. Moving on to the main event. This is what I've been waiting for, man. The main event. Fight Nerd's dream. As I told you guys, I was, just praising this fight the minute it got announced. Everyone sits up there, and not everyone, but people sit up there, the privilege, the this, the that. Look, these guys are either who they are, who they say they are, or they're not. I love when we take a guy, an Umar Nurmagomedov, who's ranked number 10. We throw him in the Shark Tank with a guy like Corey Sandhagen, who I have said is the most well-rounded guy in the division. I picked Umar to win this fight, and I originally, when this fight was announced, I said Corey. I thought that Corey's, kind of very tactical and smart fight IQ approach to things was going to be maybe a little bit too much for Umar. But then I said, look, Corey, he's made a lot of improvements, and I do expect him to be better on the feet than he's ever been, working with Trevor Whitman, and his offensive grappling has improved, and the footwork and the feints, and I understand that. And I said all of those things, Corey was going to look the best we've seen in this matchup. The question for me was, what was that defensive grappling going to look like? And it was outstanding. It was honestly outstanding. Corey Sandhagen improved his takedown defense. So literally the reason that I picked Umar to win was basically the reason that Umar didn't necessarily end up winning. Like, I knew Umar was a good striker, but look, guys, That fight I'm going to be watching back multiple times. I mean, Corey Sandhagen, first I want to say this. He's now a part of two of my favorite tactical, like back and forth strategy chess match fights. One with Petr Yan and now with Umar Nurmagomedov. I mean, I don't think people are technically realizing, because I know it just kind of happened, Corey Sandhagen was defending those takedowns so well that Umar, yes, he was getting some control time, but Corey was never really in any danger. He's very scrambly, he's very wiry, and he finds a way to get back to his feet. He was even doing it very well against Umar. A lot of this fight, Umar was standing on the feet with Corey Sandhagen and was doing just fine. And that is really what kind of blew me away in this fight, because I thought, look, Umar has good power in his hands. He's got some good kicks. But if you asked me, if you said, look, Jake, there's no takedowns, and this fight is going to be 5 rounds on the feet, who's going to win? I would have told you Corey Sandhagen. I would have definitely picked Corey Sandhagen, but I picked Umar because I was like, look, the grappling's going to be too much. He might be able to pull off a submission here. I just, I had this vision like Umar in each round is going to be securing these takedowns, mauling Corey for a few minutes, and it just wasn't the case. Corey was defending these really well. I mean, don't get me wrong, we did see Umar take Corey down and put him in some positions and control Corey at times, but Corey would find a way to get back to his feet. And I mean, Corey Sandhagen, if you're a young fighter out there, this is a guy that you're going to want to watch and take notes. The high guard, the way he switches stances, the footwork. I mean, his hands look sharp. He didn't open up enough as the fight progressed, though. Corey Sandhagen started out really, really strong. He was landing some good leg kicks. The stance switching, he was giving Umar a lot of different reads. But one thing I think that Corey underestimated, as I was watching the fight, I said out loud, I was like, I think that Corey underestimated the striking of Umar. I even did because, look, I knew Umar had good striking, but I didn't think he was going to be able to just stand in front of Corey like he did. I mean, I was beyond impressed with Umar Nurmagomedov. Now, look, Corey was outstanding. Both of these guys were out. This was one of the most high-level fights. This was the most, in my opinion, strategically and technically, this was one of the most high-level fights that we have seen this year thus far. It absolutely was. Back and forth, the camps. I mean, you had Trevor Whitman and Corey Sandhagen and the IQs there. You had Team Habib and Coach Javier Mendez and, the Magomedov blueprints and all those things. And they just clashed, and it made for such a fun chess match. And Umar was landing some really good shots on the feet. Corey was landing some good shots on the feet. Umar was checking kicks. Corey was defending the takedowns. This fight had everything that you could imagine if you're one of those like fight nerds, like, I know I am, one of those fight nerds where it's like you're watching all the little movements. And for me, what really made the difference was Corey started off very strong. And we saw this against, in the Yan Sandhagen fight, because, I brought that one up. Corey starts off very strong, and then he kind of pulls off a little bit as the fight progresses, and his corner was telling him, we got to throw the kitchen sink at him in the 5th round, and he just wasn't able to do it. And ironically, in the 5th round, I think that was Umar's best round in terms of the grappling, and we just saw, man, I was very impressed with Umar. It was this, first 5-round fight inside the UFC. It was a main event. There was a lot of pressure on him to get this thing done against who I was saying that was the most well-rounded guy in the division. He goes out there, stands and trades with him on the feet, mixes in the takedowns. His cardio holds up for 5 rounds. He's in there with a veteran like Corey Sandhagen for 5 rounds like that. It was beyond impressive. I'm still nerding out over that fight, man. I'm still nerding out over that fight. That might have been my favorite fight that I have watched all year, man. Seriously, all year so far in 2024. That might be my favorite fight that we've watched. Stylistically, tactically, it had everything. I'm excited to see what happens next. So Corey Sandhagen, he's right in the mix, man, because, considering where the division is next, what matchups make sense for him, I'm not particularly sure off the top of my head, but Corey, keep his head up, man. This is one of my... Corey Sandhagen, after that fight, he's already a guy I really like watching. Definitely someone that I'm going to be paying a lot more attention to. Definitely a guy that I always enjoy watching fight. But, stylistically, he made a lot of great adjustments. Just didn't open up enough as the fight progressed in terms of the striking. And he let Umar get a little bit out in front of him. But I do believe that Corey underestimated the striking of Umar a little bit. I really do think he did. I think he was so worried about the takedowns, and he was like, look, if this fight is on the feet, that's going to be me all day. And you got to see Umar's hands aren't so bad. He's got some pretty decent pop in him. Those kicks are nasty, which we knew. He was defending the leg kicks well, because I figured with Trevor Whitman being in the corner of Corey Sandhagen coming into this fight, not only was the boxing going to improve, But where was Trevor Whitman just a few years ago? He was in Justin Gaethje's corner when they prepared to fight Khabib Nurmagomedov. Now, Khabib and Umar are similar but yet very different. I think Umar is a better, more versatile striker than Khabib. But what did Gaethje do to Khabib? Beat the hell out of his legs. It helps, beat up the legs. It makes it harder to take a shot. It, just kind of wears them out, hinders the movement. And we saw Corey Sandhagen started to beat up the legs, and I'm like, there's that Trevor Whitman influence there. Good game plan here. And then Umar started to check him, and I'm like, there's the adjustment. And then we just got to see some great adjustments, great back and forth, incredible performance by Umar. It was a huge step up in competition. Shout out to Corey Sandhagen also for taking the fight when nobody else would, because they just delivered one of the best stylistic and strategical fights that we have seen of the year thus far. But I want to hear from you all down in the comments. Like this video. Comment your thoughts below. Subscribe to the channel. Help your boy out. I would appreciate it. See you next time.